Bleach Bros Podcast is proud to align itself with Jerky Pro, a beef jerky manufacturer established by military and paramilitary veterans.
Available in 3-ounce or 1-pound bags with great flavors such as honey glazed, teriyaki, red hot, apple cinnamon, original, peppered, sweet barbecue, and if you're ballsy enough, nuclear.
Be sure to use our promo code to get some of the best jerky on the market. Use Bleach Bros 5, all lowercase, to take advantage of this offer today. You're listening to the Bleach Brothers Podcast, hosted by B-Word and Jake. Welcome into the Bleach Brothers Podcast. This is B-Word, and as usual, I am here with my good buddy, Jake the Hater, the Nicolas Cage connoisseur.
I fucking love Nick Cage, bro.
Dude, I do too. He's one of my favorite actors, dude.
What's his real name?
Nicolas
Coppola.
Coppola. It's Francis
Nicolas
Ford
Kim
Coppola's.
Coppola.
Yeah, it's Francis Ford Coppola's nephew.
Which my favorite thing is he changes his name because he doesn't want to become famous because of his name. Yet he still became famous because of I don't know. Shit like that pisses me off, but everything else is cool. I mean, he had a Tyrannosaurus Rex head on his dining table for years, so good for him.
Did you hear the story though where he's like a super fan of everything comic books, and you heard how he came up with Cage for his last name?
No.
It came from Luke Cage from Marvel. Okay. And so he chose Luke Cage because it's, again, one of the things. And you hear about like his fandom of like Ghost Rider, like that was the one that he really wanted to do. And then he was supposed to be Superman for a minute, like with Tim Burton.
Yeah, he was going to be the Tim Burton Superman where like he was fighting a giant spider. Did you watch the documentary on that, by the way?
You told me to, and I never have.
Dude, just watching the shit show of behind it, because it's the epitome of just behind the scenes Hollywood people. Like the people we bitch about, like, I can't believe they would do that in a movie. And then you see these people like in real life and you're like,
right, I
can see why this shit happens now in movies. I mean, the guy talking on the thing who was like the head producer was like, I wanted him to fight a giant spider because what's more scarier than a giant spider? And I'm like, it's fucking... I'd rather see a real villain fight Superman, not a giant fucking spider. Like, it's not like, what is that movie with the guy from Scream? David Arquette.
Oh, David Arquette, yeah.
Eight crazy, whatever, the giant fucking 8-legged freaks.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Shit. No, do you like, I loved that suit though from Tim Burton's Superman.
It was a nice suit. Yeah, I actually really like the suit, and I like the long-haired Spider-Man. Spider-Man, Superman. Shit.
He reminded me of Bizarro.
He kind of did, right?
He's more Bizarro than actually Superman, but I'm not trying to get off on a tangent, but I mean,
but this is actually leads into something else that I was going to talk about because, he's like a huge fan of Superman. I think that's his favorite character. He's named his son Kal-El. Okay. So Mike from Happy Hour probably loves, Nick Cage's nuts. But on that same note, he bought the very first comic book of Superman and then fucking lost it. Like, this is how much money this dude has. Like,
that sounds like a Nick Cage move, dude.
It
like,
is
they
Nick
could make
Cage
a movie
move.
about that. Like, they could make a documentary or whatever those are called, a mockumentary or whatever, where it's a story about Nick Cage buying the comic and losing it, and then his wife holding green rocks up to his balls while they're fucking so she won't get pregnant, but it didn't work.
It's almost like, you remember that one documentary with Michael Jackson where the one interviewer or whatever is watching him just shopping and he's just like purchasing random shit. Yeah. I imagine that's what Nicolas Cage does, dude. He's just like, I want that one. I want that big ass fucking Tyrannosaurus Rex hat because it's a hat and it's got like 2 little beer koozies in it. And like, it's the craziest thing, dude.
I want to see Nicolas Cage buy fruit. And the reason is weird. I imagine it being the guy like holding up 2 watermelons like, and like trying to figure and just seeing it, even if there's no sound effects, just this is a podcast, so I gotta do something. But if he's just holding him up, I can just see him staring and like holding it up in Whole Foods to the sunlight, and then holding it in his cart and then looking at it and then setting it down and picking it back up. I mean, I could be entertained by Nicolas Cage buying a watermelon. I'm just saying that right now.
That's actually
you imagine it and you're like, that's fucking funny.
That's actually pretty interesting, dude. And that kind of leads into this movie called The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
I'm so excited.
On a scale of 1 to 10, dude, like literally 1 to 10, keep it within 1 to 10. How excited are you for this movie?
A 9.
Dude, I think I'm a 10.
Why are you're like Billy Bob? A 10.
A fucking 10. A fucking 10. Yeah, no, so first off, just behind the curtain, like I saw the preview for this movie and I thought it was fake. And I sent it to you after I realized it was real. Mm-hmm. And we're like, holy shit, we have to talk about Nicolas Cage. Like there's no other thing to do. But the best part about this movie is it's Nicolas Cage as Nicolas Cage. Like he's eccentric. He's himself. He's probably exaggerated to a certain extent, but he's absolutely the perfect character. I mean, who else can play Nick Cage? I mean, Tom or John Travolta couldn't do it, So
well,
who else could play Nick Cage?
No, nobody could. I mean, so the funny thing is when you were at my house staying here, about a month ago? 2 months ago?
A couple months now.
So remember we were sitting down and we were actually playing the game. Like me and you were sitting in the living room and my mom wanted to join in. She was like, is this what your podcast is about or whatever? But we were talking about like favorite actors and bullshit like that. And I said Nick Cage like is one of mine. And everybody was like, what? I can't believe that.
Oh, Nick Cage is an incredible actor.
I love his fucking movies. And the thing was, so I was telling my wife and she's like, that's not a movie. That sounds stupid. And then I played her the trailer. She goes, that actually looks really good. And she goes, because it's just him being an asinine, like eccentric weirdo himself.
Right. So for the audience, because, copyright, we can't really play the trailer for you. However, I'll read the synopsis. It says actor Nicolas Cage begrudgingly accepts a $1 million offer to attend the birthday of a billionaire superfan. When things take a wild turn, Cage is forced to become a version of some of his iconic and beloved characters in order to extricate his wife and daughter from the fan whom the CIA has informed him is a notorious arms dealer. And the fan is played by none other than Pedro Pascal. So The Mandalorian. So this movie stars Tiffany Haddish, Neil Patrick Harris, and some others, including Demi Moore. So you're talking about a somewhat star-studded cast. I wouldn't necessarily say it's A-list.
It's not A-level, but it's there are people that
it's
are
recognizable. Yeah, recognizable. Nicolas Cage has starred in upwards of 100 movies. Like this dude, like if you sneeze and somebody's willing to make a movie about it, he'll star in it. But I think that this one is his perfect role. Would you agree?
It is. I mean, yeah, like you just were blah, blah, blahing this long thing. And long story short, it's Nick Cage being himself on an island with a wax version of himself with a guy who's crazy and
loves Nick Cage.
But I mean, I don't know. He's starring 100 movies. This is probably one of his, it's one of his easiest roles because it's him. Now, do you feel like maybe he's sitting here though? Like when they pitched it to him, he was like, fuck this. Like, because there's only a few movies I can think of that came out like this. Do you remember Being John Malkovich?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. And like, that's that type of movie, right? Where it's not really him, but it's him.
Right.
Like there's not a lot where somebody's actually playing themselves. Like Entourage tried to do that.
I was just going to bring up Entourage. Yeah. It's a smaller scale than what it was. I mean, you had Jessica Alba or you had, you had different characters all throughout. I'm trying to think of what Tony Soprano's daughter's name, the actress, but she played Turtle's girlfriend. I mean,
it was more juicy booty.
Yeah, it was more like overt, like criticism of themselves, or more overt, like satire of themselves. Like Bob Saget, right? Bob Saget was probably one of the best guest stars in Entourage. But now we're going off on that tangent. But this is the perfect role for Nicolas Cage. Now, he starred in a shit ton of movies. The guy's played a shit ton of characters. And also, you don't really read your text messages. I can tell. You just left me on red because I sent you a little video about Nicolas Cage and
Mm-hmm.
you know some of his movies and how they got made. You
Mm-hmm.
didn't watch that, so I
Nope.
love that. You probably didn't watch it because it was 15 minutes long, but whatever, you
Hey,
know.
dude, you usually either send me. Okay, hold on. Before you do that, fuck you, because it's either Island Boy videos, something perverted, and this one time it was probably going to be interesting. And I was like, I don't have fucking time for this today.
Yeah, yeah, but it's interesting because you know Nicolas Cage has his own style, right? He's got his
Right.
own. I don't know that there's anybody like him. Would you say that there is an actor, whether it be a former actor, a current actor, whatever, that would be like a similar to Nick Cage? Is there somebody like a character actor or somebody like that who you can say is kind of on his level?
You know, I'm thinking there's a guy. Yeah. Exactly. I'm just gonna call.
Morty.
Yeah,
Morty.
I think there's about like there's a handful, right? And so I think there's a few types of stars in Hollywood, and we're not talking like D-list and all that. There's the guys like Nick Cage that you're saying like that are when they're themselves, it's like that's you can't replicate that, right?
Right.
And then there's the people like Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt who are just movie stars. They're
Yep.
just movie stars, right? Like Bradley Cooper and stuff. But
DiCaprio.
then there's some people that just come along and it's like R.I.P. to this guy, but Gilbert Gottfried, for example, there's never going to be another one of him.
No.
It's just the voice, it's the acting. I can't think of a lot of them. There are a few, but it's
I think you brought up one, right?
Yeah, Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken. I think John Turturro.
Okay.
I
Al
think
Pacino I put in that genre because I think he's
yep.
It's one of those. I think you have to have a few factors, right? You have to have mannerisms that are a little over the top.
Yep.
You have to have a remarkable style voice. And what I mean by that is something that can be replicated by people, but is still so uniquely you. Like when Brad Pitt talks, you can tell it's Brad Pitt, but you're not like, oh, not like when you hear John Madden or Christopher Walken or those, or
Joe Pesci.
Or Matthew McConaughey, even that style of voice where you're like, that is that guy.
Right.
So yeah, there's some out there, but I think he's one of the top ones. And I think that's what we enjoy about him, right?
Yeah.
Like he might be in a bad film, but you're still sitting there going, it's still Nick fucking Cage.
So you have a fascination of pigs. Yeah. And you went and saw the Nicolas Cage movie called Pig. Is that what it's called?
Pig.
Yeah. And so, I remember seeing like the movie Knowing. I remember seeing the movie. God, there were several movies that I saw with Nicolas Cage that I'm just like, fuck, man, how am I watching this? I think box office wise, he kind of reminds me of John Travolta. Not to do the whole like Face Off pun. Like they have movies that they're known for that they're great in, and then they have like a whole slew of movies that nobody could care less about and that are forgettable, right?
Right.
But as far as Nicolas Cage characters go, he's played a whole ton of characters. What would you say is your top 5 Nicolas Cage characters?
So this is tough because when I write these out, I can't write out my favorite films. I write out characters that are somewhat the epitome of him.
Yeah.
But also remind me of like he comes through with it, right? So number 5, I'm going to go backwards. Number 5 for me is Jack Singer from Honeymoon in Vegas. And the reason is I grew up in Vegas, right? I remember that was one of those movies, like you remember when we were kids, like ABC or CBS or any of them would have those late night movies they'd play.
Yeah.
And that was one of them, and I'd always fucking see him jumping out, the scene where he's dressed up as Elvis jumping out of the planes, skydiving. Yeah. I've never really actually seen the whole movie. I relate Nick Cage to that, right? So that's number 5. Number 4 is actually from the movie Pig, Rob, the chef.
Oh, okay, so I've never seen it. So okay.
See, the movie's not very good in my opinion. And I don't care. Everybody, people always, whenever we come up with these lists, people roast us. I mean, you guys usually do because everybody thinks my lists are shit, but he's an over the top chef, but he does a good job playing it. And I could see it's like almost the twilight of his career where the role makes sense.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Sure.
Number 3 is Big Daddy, where he's Big Daddy
Yeah.
or Damon in Kick-Ass.
Kick-Ass,
where
yeah.
he's the dad being like the shithead. You know what I mean? Like, what the hell's going on here? And then number 2 is actually an animated film, The Croods.
Oh, I didn't even think about putting animated films in here.
So I watched it with my kiddos, right? You know, I got young little ones around the house, and I think his name is Grug, or something caveman,
something like that, yeah.
Where he's the dad. And it is him. Like, I mean, the one thing I like about animated films, and you can say this like, even with Toy Story, where Woody resembles the character who voices him, Tom Hanks, a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it sort of, even though he's not a huge giant stature guy, the facial reactions of how his voice goes is very well done, where it comes across well. And then number 1 for me, and I think it's just because the meme is out there, I think his accent is terrible, is Cameron Poe from Con Air.
Okay.
It's you know what I mean? It's one of those ones where you're just like, oh, the movie's so bad, but it's so good. And his character is so bad, but it's so good. Like, it's over the top. Like, it's the epitome of every scene when his hair's blowing in the wind. It's like almost like its own fucking montage.
Right.
But he plays it so well.
He does. He played that very well. So to get into my top 5, there's a lot of people out there that like this movie, and I mean, it's okay. It wasn't like anything to write home about, but Benjamin Franklin Gates from National Treasure. Okay. I thought he was really good. It was kind of one of those roles that was replicated already, though. But I thought for what he played, it was really well. Mm-hmm. My number 4 is also going to be Big Daddy from Kick-Ass. Okay. Now, full disclosure, I didn't know what Kick-Ass was when the movie actually released. Okay. I just knew it was a superhero movie. I didn't really know it was based on an independent comic. And so after the movie, I actually started to read some of the comic books and whatever. But when he played Big Daddy, it was a new version of Nicolas Cage for me. Nicolas Cage had never been that character per se. I mean, he had been in Ghost Rider, but it wasn't like, I don't know, Big Daddy, I think, was just more genuine, and it was more relatable because of what the character was. Mm-hmm. So Big Daddy was that for me. One of the first movies that I saw Nicolas Cage in was Face Off, and so Castor Troy. The one thing that I love about this film, Face Off. So actually, let me start with what I don't like in this film. I complain to you a lot about films that have a constant score, like where there's constant music playing. Like Venom 2 had that. Morbius had that, where there's just no break in the music. And Face Off has no break in the music. But one of the things about Face Off that I liked is obviously Castor Troy's, his character is based off of John Travolta. And John Travolta's character is based off of Nicolas Cage. And so Castor Troy is this very, this very gregarious, like, I don't know, kind of a punchable face looking dude. Yeah. And he, I don't know. I just thought it was a really well played character. And there's a backstory on that too. So John Travolta was having a hard time keeping up and acting, according to an interview that I saw on GQ, where he had gone to Nicolas Cage and he's like, look, I don't know how to play you. Like, how do I act as you? And Nicolas Cage basically said, anything that you would want to do it 10 times harder. And you'll just do it. And so that's where you saw John Travolta become like completely flamboyant in the character. So anyway, that's a really long explanation for that. But number 2, Cameron Poe, Con Air. You got into that one already.
Yeah,
that's one of his best roles for sure. And then number 1, I don't know why this is number 1, but Memphis Rain's Gone in 60 Seconds. I think it's them listening to Lowrider before they go and they steal the cars. Right. Like, he just gets all into it and he starts waving his hands before he's ready to go.
Yeah, like, let's go.
Yeah. And then you get the interaction between like him and his brother and all of the other characters in there. Those are definitely the top 5 for me.
Those are good picks. I mean, did you have the same trouble with me of like not relating the characters to the best movies of him?
Yeah, I
Because it's
did.
like I think there are times that happens. I think we fall into the trap, like we've talked about before on the show, of you have the best movie from an actor doesn't mean it was the best character ever. Like for me, like example like of another guy, and I know we mentioned him on the show, and I'm not trying to get off the Nick Cage thing, but like Brad Pitt, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite movies ever is True Romance, Quentin Tarantino's first written film. And Brad Pitt is a stoner on a couch.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I don't know if you know, it's Val Kilmer's in that movie and he's Elvis.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, but so I would, if I had to do a list, those would probably make the list, even though it's not their prominent role. I think I had a harder time thinking though of when Nick Cage has been in the background and a great character. So of course I had to go to ones where he's the forefront, because I think he's one of those forces though too, where he's in the fucking forefront of the movie at all times.
Right.
Sort of like the Gone in 60 Seconds thing you were saying, where it's him shaking his hands and waving and being really into it.
Right.
Great picks though, man. I think we agree. I think the other thing is though too, as you said, he's been in hundreds of movies.
Right.
And the problem I have is that like I haven't seen some of the ones you're talking about, and like for instance, you haven't seen Pig.
No,
and
I'm not.
And I think the final problem is that we also know it's Nick Cage.
Yeah.
And we know the quality. Like, it's shitty to say we love the actor, right? We love this new movie that's going to be coming, or we think we're going to love this new movie coming out because it's the epitome of him, right? I mean, even though the critics are saying it's great, it's the fact that it's also still a Nicolas Cage movie where you're going,
right.
I'm not expecting it to be amazing, but I'm also not expecting it to be absolute shit.
Right.
Like, it's like he's an A-list actor in C movies all the fucking time.
Well, I think that's a really good way to describe it. I think that the talent's there. The fact that Nicolas Cage overacts, I think, kind of contributes to those C movies sometimes. Like if there's not a good script, or if there's not a good production value to the film, you're probably going to get a Nick Cage box office bummer, but he's a great actor. Like he's the type of person I would actually like to sit down and actually listen to talk every once in a while.
I would too. So I got two questions on that point then, B-Word, and I want us to expound on this. One, could you see him winning an Oscar for like a really good, prominent, like let's say they put him in a Scorsese film as a villain, and not like a villain like Face Off, right? Could you see him being able to pull off the chops to do something crazy like that?
I think he would be a great villain.
Okay.
I think he would be a great villain. I believe that Nick Cage has already won an Oscar, though.
I'm sure he has. I mean, like now, like in part of his career, if you could see him playing a very, very serious role, sort of like, remember when Jim Carrey did all the comedies, right? And then he came out with like the Number 23. Could you see him going that route where it's like so serious and wants to be so well done, where that's what he wants to pull out? Like, a lot of Denzel films.
Yeah, I could see him doing the very serious actor, because we talked about him in the beginning of the episode here, but McConaughey was always kind of put in that box. Mm-hmm. And I think McConaughey, once he finally got a really good script and he was able to fulfill that script in the manner that the character needed to be done, he got the Oscar, and he got it for Dallas Buyers Club. And I could see Nick Cage in a role similar to that, not Dallas Buyers Club, of course, but just a serious role where there's like a heavy topic or a weighty topic for him to address. But in order for him to address it, he like has to do the flamboyancy of his acting. Does that make sense?
Yeah. See, my problem with it is I can't see him not overacting any role. And I would be interested to see him actually tone it back. Like say, okay, like in his mind, be like, Nick, okay, say this scene. Now say it 5 times slower, a lot more quieter, and stop shaking your fucking hands. Like that's how I feel it would have to be directed for him to be able to pull that off.
I think he can. I think he can do it though. I mean, if you look at like, not saying it's the best movie ever, but if you look at Con Air, there's a lot of times where he's very calm as that character. The only time that he's really riled up is in a fight scene.
Yeah, when the wind's blowing and it's a montage.
So, but as far as him being able to be calm and collected, as a character. I mean, he's proven that he can do it. I just think that it has to be something where the topic at hand is like the script and the story has to have that serious context where his flamboyancy as an actor can be utilized rather than trying to be suppressed. Okay. I think that's his best role. By the way, he did win an Oscar for Leaving Las Vegas in 1996.
My bad. So, second question, because I said I had two for it. The follow up to that is, and he's done it already. Okay. He was in Kick-Ass. He was in Ghost Rider, but we nerd out on this show. If you could see him, and you can pick any property, Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, villain or hero, what superhero or villain or character do you want to see him portray in a film if they could cast him as something?
See, I don't know that I would want to see him now as this character, but I think I would want to see him when the movie came out as this character, and that'd be the T-1000 of Terminator. Yeah. I think he would be a badass T-1000.
I could see that. I was not going that route. I was, because if we remember when we talked on this show, the first time I ever watched Terminator is you played the sex scene and turned it off. And,
boobies
that's
and
all
subies,
I needed
bro.
to see, you told me. But that's a really good pick. I could see that. See, now I'm thinking he could be a good RoboCop.
See, and that was my second one, was RoboCop.
Mm-hmm. I would. Okay.
Go ahead. I think that specifically in movies that are in the 80s, everything was overacted, right? This is why they had like Hulk Hogan in movies. This is why they had, while they were able to come up with Beetlejuice, right? So like things were just absolutely so much bigger, so much more flamboyant. Now we live in a society where, number one, you have to worry about getting canceled, right? So, and number two, you have to worry about appeasing different groups of people. And so movies can't be made in the same way that they were, I believe, in the 70s and 80s. Also, we live in a society that has a lot of copycats with the plots or remakes. And I don't think that Nick Cage would be great for a remake. I think he was great as Ghost Rider. I don't want Marvel to keep him as Ghost Rider, like just selfishly. Right. But I thought for what Ghost Rider was, I don't think it was a great film, but I thought for what it was, he did it phenomenal. But I would see him more as like an 80s villain, like a was it Hans Gruber? Not Hans Gruber, of course, but like that style of villain in an 80s film. And so that's why I went to T-1000.
See, because one of my points I was going to make before I list what I got, because I have three characters I can see him being, is that I think the culture and genres have outgrown him or aged out of him, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is sort of the same. Not that he's the same person, okay? But like, let's say he didn't age. Like the muscular 80s macho film is not the same. The same as overacting is not the same, right? But if I was going to do it, and you said no remake, so one of the ones I'm going to list is actually a remake. I would love to see him as the Mask. What Jim Carrey played from.
That would be interesting. That would be interesting because I don't think that. And I'm sorry to cut you off.
You're fine.
The Mask was not supposed to be as comedic as what it was with Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey made it that comedic. Right. So I do think that Nick Cage can take that and spin it in a different direction. I think that's a really good choice.
Well, because you've read the comic before, seen some of it, and it's dark as hell. Like I think a couple years ago they got in trouble because he kills the president and becomes the president of the world or something.
Yeah.
And so I could see, that's why I could see Nick Cage pulling that type of character off where it's a little sadistic. His facial features would do it. Number two, and this has nothing to do with him acting, it would more be CGI, sort of like Groot, Vin Diesel and stuff, is I would love him to be Howard the Duck.
Like for the voice, obviously.
Yeah, just him as Howard the Duck. I think that could be a lot of fun. And I would really enjoy that. If I was going to put him as a villain, I want him to be Scarecrow in the Batman universe.
Batman.
Because I think it's a character that you can put up with the overacting during certain times. And what I mean by that is like when he releases serum or something, it's not going to be that big of a deal if he's going crazy and overacting, right? Because that's the whole point.
Sure.
Or if he's in Arkham. But I could also see him having those moments where he's really quiet and like trying to methodically talk, but you also can't take the villain seriously. And that's why I want him as that.
And And in Batman, we think about the overacting of characters, and you can go back to like the Penguin in the 1960s television series, the Riddler in the 1960s television series. Same thing with the Joker. More modern, you've got Jack Nicholson as the Joker. You've got Jim Carrey as the Riddler, which wasn't a bad Riddler performance at all, in my opinion. But with the way that comics are going, DC's turning dark. So I don't know that it would happen in that way. But would you want him to like act it now, or would this be in a different decade?
I could see him now. I could see him doing it now because I think it could be the best of both worlds, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It's sort of that twilight of the career. Okay, I got to take this a little seriously, but I can still do myself. And I think, as I said, with the type of villain it is, like it's not so crazy where he's the Mad Hatter, right? Or the Joker, but it's not so serious where he's Two-Face.
Okay.
It's that where psychedelics, whatever you want to call it, Scarecrow serum, could cause it to where he is very over the top, avant-garde, Nicolas Cage, flamboyant, as you've said about 19 times, or the more serious, downtrodden when he needs to talk. And it's not that he's the best in those scenes, but also, no offense to Batman movies, what they're doing with this, but it's not all about the fucking villain. We don't need the villain in every scene. So that's the other reason I could see that. I'm not casting him as a superhero. I can't think of one fucking superhero I want Nicolas Cage to play unless it's like something like when they put Stallone at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy as the original Guardians.
Yeah, I could see something like that.
Like I could see something like that where, he's just on the side and, he comes in and he's some god or something like,
I could see him as an alternate Doctor Strange. Like Multiverse of Madness, alternate Doctor Strange. I could see that. But you know what he would be though? Like his perfect a role that would be great for him is a dishwasher, because that's how we got introduced to him in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And he was actually casted as Nicolas Coppola. Again, going back to the text messages that you don't read, he actually introduced Johnny Depp to his agent, and that's how Johnny Depp became. Yeah. Oh, you remember that? So you read that somewhere else aside from a text
online. Okay, asshole.
So yeah, I'm just being flamboyant here.
You are, dude. Man.
But similar with Nicolas Cage, Johnny Depp too also plays a lot of characters. So we'll go there. So we have a few everlasting segments already. We have the everlasting jukebox, which side note there, we've got a new partnership going on with Dads on Dayquil. You want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, we're so on Dads on Dayquil, big shout out to them. We're good friends with them. Gnome over there has he still has the Gnome's Music Hut. And him and I have always talked in the background, and we get along very well with music. And we sort of think on the same page, but we thought it would be fun to do a segment called the Hateful Gnomes Music Hut. First episode will be dropping this week. That's going to be a bi-weekly thing that we're dropping on each of our podcasts as a collaboration effort. Just to showcase bands that we're listening to, music we're into at the moment, whether it's new, old, or whatever that we think you should be checking out. And just good short conversation. So
we have the everlasting segment, which has spawned into that music. We've had the everlasting bookshelf, which I thought was one of our better episodes. We had a lot of good conversation about books that were pivotal to us at different times in our life. And now we'd like to introduce the everlasting movie reel. And so our first entry into the everlasting movie reel will be Nick Cage movies. And we're going to enter in our top 5 Nicolas Cage movies. And as usual, we will have 2 honorable mentions. So Jake, you want to start us out with your honorable mentions?
Yeah, one I think is Kick-Ass, just because I liked the character so much. It's not a Nick Cage film overall. So, I mean, as just like anything, like when we talk about the music or any movies we've ever listed or books or whatever, my tops are going to be the ones that I can go back and rewatch for a reason for me. It doesn't necessarily, this is my list. Everybody can shit it on all they want. So Kick-Ass is my first honorable mention. I thought he did a good job as a character, but it's not his film. Number 2 is a really shitty film, but I love it. And it's called Primal.
I have seen Primal, actually.
I mean, Just it's Nick Cage on a boat as the most epic hunter in the world with Matt, like drug dealing murderers. And a jaguar, like what is it, an albino jaguar or some bullshit gets loose, and he has to hunt the main killer. The main killer in that movie looks like a fucking roided out Elon Musk, bro. Like he does, dude. He reminds me of if Elon Musk just dropped Tesla, took roids, and wanted to go kick Nick Cage's ass.
That's amazing.
What are your honorable mentions?
I share Kick Ass with you. Okay. I for the same reasons. It's a movie I can watch over and over. I enjoy the storyline. He is a side character in that, which I actually appreciate. I don't think that you have to have the leading character or the actor in a movie that you like be the leading character. I think there's a lot of movies that are out there where there are side characters who are valuable. So Kick Ass for sure. And then my second one is going to be Ghost Rider, the first one.
Really? I've never seen it.
You've never seen Ghost Rider?
Mm-mm. No, I have no reason to. I heard
so
it's
actually, it is terrible, but it's a good. It's a terrible movie, but it's not Morbius.
Okay.
And it's
best
also,
way to put it.
Yeah, and from what I understand, it's also not the new Fantastic Four. And when I say new, it came out like 5 years ago or 10 years ago or something. I've not watched that one. Ghost Rider, the first one was actually good. I would suggest that you watch it. The second one, Spirit
of Vengeance or whatever.
Yeah, I could go without that.
Okay.
But Ghost Rider I thought was good. I thought he did very well oh God, I forgot Ghost Rider's name. Johnny Blaze.
Johnny Blaze.
I thought he did well as a character. And the best part is because the character was very overt, I guess. I mean, there's a lot of CGI in it. He actually painted his face in like war paint, like African war paint and stuff to try to get into the character when his head's on fire. And so he would like act with the war paint on and they would just CGI the flame over it.
Oh my God.
It's so good.
So can I ask you this about that movie since I haven't seen it? Is it one of those ones where it's split between the two characters enough where you're like, he's good as this guy, but not that guy?
I thought he was fine as both.
Oh, was he? Okay. So
I thought he was fine as both.
Okay.
Again, it's a terrible superhero movie, but it's not horrible.
It's not. But it's on my list of superhero movies I'll never watch.
Oh, why?
Like I have Catwoman. That and
no. I understand Catwoman. Yeah, I've never seen Catwoman.
I guess I'll check it out. You tell me to. I mean, I watch enough bad movies. I don't know. It just didn't seem like it's going to be good at all. Like any part of it. No redeeming factor.
It was okay. I mean, if you like, some of the Fast and Furious movies, then you'll like this one. It's kind of in the same vein as like, it's an action movie. There's things that are wrong with it, and then you just kind of accept that the things that are wrong are right, and then you move forward. So
well, with that B word, what are your top 5 Nick Cage movies to put in the everlasting movie room?
So my number 5 is Leaving Las Vegas. It is the one that Nicolas Cage won an Oscar for. I thought it was a great performance. One of his best roles. I wouldn't say it's the best role, but one of his best roles. I just really like the movie. Again, going back to some of my standards here, it goes to watchability. If it's on, I'll watch it. And it's one of the ones that I can watch over and over and over again. So Leaving Las Vegas is number 5. I'm going to kick it over to you now. What is your number 5?
Gone in 60 Seconds.
That's your 5?
That's my number 5. It's, okay. I mean, I enjoy it. It made me actually have an appreciation for a car. Not that I love the intrigue of the Shelby Mustang, the one that got away from him.
Yep.
Watching him get it on with, he was gone in 60 seconds inside of Angelina Jolie was awesome. Yeah. His overacting the team. I mean, it's like a shitty Ocean's 11 with cars. It's like if Fast and Furious and Ocean's 11 had a gay baby, that's the movie they made.
Yeah. That's a really good comparison there.
And so, I mean, that's why it's my number 5. The other reason is I can't watch that over and over. Like I could watch it more like in the time when it came out. And I think it was like that movie that was cool when we were younger, but now it's like, I don't want to just sit down and watch that film. It's higher than most of his other 100 films, but
the Mustang Eleanor in that was really, really cool. And the whole premise of that movie is good. That's also on my list here, but I'll get to that here in a minute. My number 4 is Raising Arizona.
Okay.
I don't know that you've ever seen Raising Arizona. Maybe you have, maybe
I
you
have.
haven't. It's if I remember right, that's a Coen Brothers film. Am I correct on that?
I believe it is, but
And so, you know, I just thought it was a really good film. It was funny in parts. It was interesting all throughout. It kind of reminded me, not even close to storyline or anything like that. Yeah, it was a Coen Brother film. Um, it kind of reminded me of like movies like Fargo,
okay.
or some different movies like that. Obviously, they're in a different vein. Um, but it's one of those movies that like it entertains you, but it also makes you think. So I
Okay,
like
yeah,
Raising
I could
Arizona.
see that. Yeah, no, there's some moments in it that you're going like you ponder based on certain interactions and reactions in that film,
Right.
rather than just being like Gone in 6 Seconds, just being fucking entertained. Like you're not
Right.
sitting there going, "Oh man, I bet I could go steal a car like this many cars in that dime."
Yeah, exactly.
My
So
number
what's your
4
yeah,
is based on one of my favorite writers, H.P. Lovecraft, and it's called Color Out of Space. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have not watched that
It's
movie.
a more recent film. It's a sci-fi horror based on a short story from H.P. Lovecraft with Nick Cage, where he's the main role. Essentially, a meteorite comes to Earth and melts into it, and there's bright color stuff. It's not the best. It's not the greatest film, right? But for me, I liked it for what it was. It's based on short stories that I enjoy. I thought he acted well in it enough for the what he was given. And it's just interesting. It's a different type of role that I really enjoyed and my style of movie. So, I
Okay.
mean, I would suggest checking it out, B Word. I don't know. I think it came out like 2018, 2019,
Okay.
but so it's fairly recent, but it's a good movie. And I would say check that out.
Okay.
I'm going to jump to my number 3.
Sure.
And this is a movie I can watch a lot. And I think this is what, when I think, I don't think he was in his prime. I think he was near the end of it, but it was almost, you almost thought a resurgent was going to happen with Nick Cage, if that makes sense. And it's the original National Treasure.
Okay.
I I just like that film. It's, to me, it's a more fun. What's that one with Tom Hanks where the Da Vinci Code?
The Da Vinci Code. Yeah.
It's a
It's your
funner
rule of
Indiana.
two.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's your rule of two because I believe that they came out right around the same year.
they did. It's just if Indiana Jones and Da Vinci Code made a movie
Yeah.
again, this is what you get.
Yeah.
More fun. But it's sort of like that. I just enjoyed that, watching him go through the puzzles and figure things out and stuff. And
Right.
to me, it's a very entertaining film that just keeps you going. You could watch it, and it's just
Okay.
it's an easy watch, and it's for anybody to watch. So I really enjoy that one.
Okay. My number 3 is Con Air. Again, it's a terrible film. I hate to say that these films are terrible. Like,
right. But it's
I'm not trying to say it to demean the film, but they're one of those, like, there's no substance to it where you really have to worry about it, I guess is a better thing. Like, you don't have to follow along. But Con Air is really good. Speaking of John Malkovich, he was great in the film.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of good characters in the film. The love story was weird. And then was it a bunny? Was it a bunny or a bear? The stuffed animal.
I think it was a bear. And see, the weirdest thing to me was Steve Buscemi in the pool
Yeah,
in the
Steve
middle
Buscemi.
of the middle of the desert, middle of
Yeah.
a test site, and a kid's just out there in an abandoned pool, and he's I don't know, that whole
there's problems with the movie all the way around, but Con Air, I can jump into it at any point. Like, you don't have to really think about it. You know, Cameron Poe was a likable character. He obviously didn't try to kill the person on purpose. It was a bar fight gone wrong. You feel for him as a father. He's not been around his daughter. He doesn't really have a relationship. I don't know. I just thought Con Air is definitely my top 5. It's not the greatest movie. You're not going to. This movie is not going to win any awards other than potentially a Razzie. I just think it's a fun film.
Yeah, I can see that. And see, like, my next one is going to be a lot of people's top, and I think it goes in the same vein of this, and it's Face Off. Because
Face Off doesn't even make my list.
See, but here's the thing. It's one of those things. It's Gold Guns. It's him.
Yeah.
The scene as a child that stuck out to me is when he's on the plane in the beginning talking about eating a peach for hours.
Yes.
I remember trying to figure that out. And then when he asks the stewardess, What would you do if I asked you to suck my tongue? I had so many dreams of me as an 8-year-old boy going, I can't wait for some girl to suck my tongue.
Yeah.
And that's the epitome of Nick Cage in that film. But seeing him go from villain to good guy,
yeah,
and you feel both sides of him the whole film, like,
yeah.
holy shit. Like, I love that movie. It's still not my number one, but it's sort of like that Con Air thing. Like, he's likable, but unlikable at the same time.
It doesn't make my top 5 or my honorable mention, but I do like the film. Okay. So I'm not going to say I don't like the film. I think it goes back to the score, the soundtrack of the film. I just can't handle constant music. Like, there has to be a break, because I actually tried to watch it recently and I turned it off for that reason. So, okay. So there's that. My number 2 is probably some people's number 1. I know you already said it. It's Gone in 60 Seconds. I like it for all the reasons that you said. I don't think we really have to, rehash it. But I'm curious here. I think your number 1 and my number 1 are identical. And the reason why I think this is because we've talked about this film.
Oh, fuck. We are going to be the same. This sucks.
Yeah. So I'm just going to say 1, 2, 3, and we're going to say it.
Okay.
So 1, 2, 3, The Family Man.
Oh, fuck you, B-word. You goddamn MacGuffin. You MacGuffin me. Dude, I love the film.
I love this movie.
I do
it's
too.
My favorite Nicolas Cage movie, period.
Mine too.
Tia Leone when she's in the shower.
Oh, that's the hottest moment ever.
Yeah. I thought, okay, so I'm going to pause. Why is this your favorite Nicolas Cage movie?
It's the epitome of Face Off, where he's unlikable and likable, but it actually, and I don't like happy endings, but there's a redemption to this story of watching a man and being a man grow and learn from his mistakes.
Yeah.
And just, you feel for him on all sides. Because, all right, as a husband and a dad and a regular man, right, I'm going through my 30s right now, as you are. There are moments where you sit back and went, fuck, I just want the Ferrari and the hot naked chick and millions of dollars in a condo and not deal with any of this bullshit. But I also want to sell tires on the weekend and see my kids play baseball and have a good time while some black guy steals my eggnog and makes me disappear. I want all of it, B-word. Yeah, it's my mind thoughts all the fucking time. It's like there's those days you wake up going, fuck. And then there's the moments where you walk in, your wife's singing in the shower, and all he wanted to do in real life is jump in that shower, but he knows, shit, I got to go change a diaper right now.
Uh-huh. I love this movie because it was real. Mm-hmm. Like the story wasn't real, obviously. The way he portrayed the emotions in this story, the way he portrayed the thought process of the character, you were in his shoes. You felt he was a super successful stock market trader or whatever he was, and he is the alpha male in that room, and he knows exactly what he's going to do. And the MacGuffin, because I'm going to use that, of this movie was the fact that there was this big merger that was happening over Christmas. Mm-hmm. And this is almost like A Christmas Carol, where he gets a view of another portion of his life, right? Because you get the Ghost of Christmas Past and all this sort of stuff. You don't have that per se, but you have, here's what your life could have looked like if you would have made a different turn. And you go down this path of him finding this busty neighbor, the hot redhead. I don't even remember what her name was, but dude, I would subscribe to her Boobies and Subies. I would pay for Patreon. I would not pay for OnlyFans. Shout out Cora, but I would pay for redheaded Boobies and Subies, specifically in The Family Man. But then you had Jeremy Piven's character. Like, you had his best friend who, you and I have talked about this outside of the show, that his friend, like, the moment he was going to go and put his dick in the redhead, right? Mm-hmm. He's asking him how to get there. And his friend called him out, and he's like, hey, you remember that time with me and my child's teacher or coach or whatever it was, and you told me this and that, and why would you want to throw your life away? And it put perspective into a man who didn't have any perspective in that moment. And then you find out like how he ended up coming back from London, and I don't want to spoil the movie for anybody who hasn't watched it. I mean, it's only been out for 20 years, but but there was so much heart to this movie, and then watching him how he falls in love with Tia Leone again. Mm-hmm. Like, all of that was pure to me. It was like I was in that, like, it was believable.
But it was also great seeing his wife show him, like, and I'm not trying to say train, you know what I mean? Like, she knew something was up with him, but she also just equated to, I love this man. I'll help him through this no matter what.
Yeah.
And it's like that perfect story, right? But I mean, I should have known B-word, because me and you, like you were saying, like the Busty Red stuff, we've had a lot of conversations outside of this show. And some of them we've brought up this movie multiple times. And I literally thought you were going to make fun of me because it made the top of my list. Because it's probably the movie with Nick Cage I can watch over and over again. I watch it every year during Christmas.
I purchased it. I have it. It sits on the shelf.
And it's one of those things, like, me and you have, we've recognized and discussed parts of this film and related it to our own lives.
Yeah, to our real lives.
And I think that's what makes this film, for guys like us, that this is why probably Nick Cage makes that top of the list. Because also, it's not that like his new movie coming out where he's acting as himself.
Yeah.
But you could see him being both those guys in that film.
Yeah.
And that's true acting, right? Where you can see the person being that guy. Like another scene in that movie that really sticks out to me is when they're going to have sex and he's on the staircase on her after they go on that date.
Yeah.
And she's talking to him and he says like this type of shit he would say when he was just, banging the hookers
like that
in the
baby,
hotel
you
room.
dirty, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's like totally turned off, because I mean, that's real life, right? Like that's how it really goes. And I think the cool thing about that is a movie, but it reminds you too that it's a movie and that real life is actually happening.
Yeah.
Which is why I enjoy it.
I also really enjoy Ghetto War Machine in there. Like, War Machine, Don Cheadle. He goes to steal
eggnog,
the fucking eggnog. Yeah. And then he ends up stealing the dude's Ferrari and drops him off and gives him a bell. I just think it's a heartwarming movie, dude. It's a great Christmas movie. It's obviously one of the top Christmas movies on my list. I think that's actually where we started talking about this, was when we were ranking Christmas movies. I think so too. I think we put it on there. I don't know, man. Another everlasting segment. I don't think any of us have a bad choice. What do you think?
No, the only thing I will say is with this new movie coming out, because you got tickets. I got tickets. I didn't want to cheat, B-word, and I didn't want to throw it on my list, but I will say it's going to end up in my top 5. I would throw that out there now.
I would say so too.
I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be fun. I don't, again, like Nick Cage movie. And, I do want to apologize out there to Nick Cage fans, to Nick Cage himself, if he ever fucking listens, that we're not saying all your movies are bad. There's just certain actors that you can correlate, like it's a Nick Cage movie, so it's so good, or it's so bad, it's got to be good, or vice versa, right?
Right.
But no, nothing bad on those. I think very good picks. I was surprised that we both had the same number one. And I also enjoyed that our characters didn't coincide with the list of our movies, which says something about, I mean, for God's sakes, he's been in over 100 films.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a workhorse, dude. I appreciate the actor for who he is. I really do. And I think that there's something to say when you can enjoy terrible movies, it's because there's a good actor. And so, we'll get into some bad movies here in the next few weeks. But with that, Jake, what do you got for us?
Thanks for all the dirty talk. Come back and get sanitized. This is Jake from the Bleach Bros podcast, and thank you for listening to today's episode. I want to bring to your attention our Linktree. Visit Linktree/Bleach Bros podcast for access to all of our socials, merch, and streaming sites. Linktree is linktr.ee/Bleach Bros podcast, all one word. And if you enjoy our content, make sure to give us a like, give us a review on whatever platform you are listening on, and also invite your friends. If you're a fan of our show, be sure to check out this one to stay sanitized.
The world's changing, and it's not necessarily for the better. Cancel culture is out of control. People that are claiming to be woke are actually more divisive and destructive than they will ever admit to. The silent majority's getting fed up. We're tired of normalization of things that should not be acceptable. We're tired of division. We're tired of fighting. A lot of us just wanted to be left alone. A lot of people are worried that they're going to be canceled, that people are going to come for them. that the woke culture is not going to allow them to have a voice or to have an opinion. Too many people in this world have gotten used to the idea that just because they have the loudest voices, they are somehow automatically right. They're way too comfortable using the false front of inclusion or acceptance to try and push hateful, divisive agendas. Instead of focusing on things we all have in common, they want to accent and highlight and push all the differences and forgetting the fact that we're all just people. It's time to bring back common sense. It's time to start focusing on inclusion instead of exclusion. It's time to stop worrying about things that happened generations before any of us were walking the earth. It's time to start holding people responsible for their actions. It's time to have the uncomfortable conversations. It's time to learn and grow and expand. I had to say it, the podcast, having the uncomfortable conversations that need to be had. Available wherever you find your podcasts or at ihadtosayitpodcast.com.